So you're born in Mexico or Colombia. Forget about worrying over mortgages or drowning in debt because your last name is basically a cheat code for absolute power. Your old man isn't some boring paper pusher. He's a legend and uncrowned king in the same league as Pablo Escobar or El Chapo. The exact second they snip your umbilical cord, you're already richer than 99% of the entire human race. On paper, your inheritance is bigger than the annual GDP of a small country. You were born so far ahead in the race that you'd literally have to sprint backward just to find the finish line. But there's one tiny catch: Daddy is either working 24/7 or busy hiding in some dark hole in the ground. But hey, who cares? At least right now as a newborn, you're the king of the world. A tiny diaper-wearing king. That king of the world high. Yeah, it evaporates the second you realize money can't buy the one thing you actually want Dad's attention. Your old man is basically a VIP guest in his own home. He shows up so rarely, you practically need a missing person flyer to remember what his face looks like. So every time he crawls back from his mysterious business trips, you run to him with your greatest treasures, trying to buy his love with kid currency. You proudly show him a family drawing or a math test with a fat A+ on it, praying for just a spark of pride in those cold eyes. But the reaction is always the same, and it's brutal. He looks at you with a mix of confusion and pure disappointment, like you just handed him a bag of literal trash. Look, you gotta understand, for a guy who manages a global cartel and orders hits before his morning coffee, your gold star in math is pathetic. He's looking for a ruthless heir, a baby wolf. But instead, he sees a softer little sheep who colors inside the lines. That indifference, it guts you. You start thinking you're the glitch. You try harder, better grades, prettier drawings, but you keep getting the same cold shoulder. This toxic loop of hope and humiliation grinds your self-esteem into dust until you're 13, desperate to do anything, literally anything, just to make Dad finally look at you. This is the day the script flips. It's your big 1-3, and to your absolute shock, Dad actually decided to show up. The mansion is bumping high-end, music-expensive laughs. Dad's business associates guys in sharp Italian silk with eyes like ice are treating you with a level of respect you've never felt before. Everyone's piling on the extravagant gifts, telling you you're a chip off the old block and a future leader. For the first time in your life, you're drunk on the hype. You finally feel seen, validated, like you're officially part of the family. You feel like a somebody. The party winds down, the last glass is emptied, and Dad drops his heavy arm on your shoulder. He leans in and whispers, "Come here, champ. I got something special just for you." Your heart is redlining. You're thinking, is this it? A Porsche. A solid gold Rolex. You follow him like a puppy, but he's not heading for the 10-car garage. He leads you down, into the gut of the house. Down concrete stairs into a basement that reeks of damp mold and crusty dried blood. In the center of a pitch-black room, under a single flickering light bulb, sits your real gift. It's not a toy. It's a man tied to a chair, beaten into a pulp some rat, who supposedly skimmed from the cartel. Dad hands you a cold, heavy piece of iron. "Make me proud," he says dead calm. Smoke him. The world stops. Your kid hands, which were expecting a hug, are now holding death. You look at the guy, tears mixing with blood, and you freeze. Your moral compass is screaming bloody murder. You lower the gun. You can't pull the trigger. Dad's smile turns into a sneer of pure, unadulterated disgust. He looks at you like you're a biological glitch. He mutters that you're a waste of space, and walks out, leaving you alone in the dark with nothing but your failure. Just when you thought the party was over, Dad decides it's time for one last game. And no, it's not hide and seek. He locks you back in that damp basement with the guy you just refused to whack. But the vibe, it's completely shifted. The guy isn't tied to a chair anymore. He's on the floor, wheezing with one leg snapped at an angle that makes your stomach do backflips. And right there in the dead center of the room, glowing under that flickering bulb, sits a loaded Glock. This is where Dad teaches you Survival Math 101. The piece is exactly 3 feet from you. It's 15 feet from him. And the only rule echoed through that steel door before it slammed shut was, tomorrow morning only one of you walks out of here. You see the shift in the traitor's eyes. Fear turns into raw, jagged desperation. He knows there's no talking his way out of this. It's him or you. Period. Suddenly he moves. You hear the wet, dragging sound of his body, and that mangled leg scraping against the cold concrete, clawing towards the gun with terrifying focus. Every inch he gains is a 5-alarm fire in your brain. That sound kills your innocence faster than any bullet ever could. You're not debating right versus wrong anymore. You're in a dead heat with the Grim Reaper. Your reptilian brain flips the switch. You dive for the cold steel on the floor. You don't think about his family, his story, or your soul. You just think, don't let his dirty, desperate hand touch that trigger before I do. You grab it. You aim. The bang is deafening and final. The smoke clears, the door swings open. Dad walks in, stepping over the corpse like it's a discarded piece of IKEA furniture. He looks at you, and for the first time ever gives you a genuine warm smile. He hugs you, and in that powder-stained embrace, you feel a sick sense of relief. You realize you just traded your soul for a little bit of Daddy's approval, and the scariest part, you feel like it was a bargain. The days of being the family disappointment, ancient history. Now that you've got blood on your hands and red on your ledger, you've officially become Dad's favorite pet project. This marks the start of what can only be described as a twisted father-son honeymoon phase. But don't get it twisted. There are no trips to Disneyland or playing catch in the park here. Your quality time involves supervising shipments of tons of white powder and mastering the fine art of extracting info from rivals without leaving a single bruise. You graduate summa cum laude from the University of Organized Crime, and you quickly realize that Dad's approval is a way harder drug than anything he's pushing on the street corner. To keep that proud smirk on his face, just following orders isn't enough. You have to over-deliver. You become colder, sharper, and infinitely more brutal. If he hints at scaring an enemy, you go ahead and torch their entire house with everyone inside. If he asks for silence, you make sure nobody in that entire zip code ever breathes a word again.